How was it? To the point now where he doesn't ask me anymore. From the time I reach home, he would say, Daddy, I'm glad it was good. So he doesn't even ask me. And he takes in front now, as we say in Trinity. So he congratulates me. He said, Daddy, I'm glad it was good. And that happened this morning again, when Pastor Nicole was trying to explain. So I'm saying that to say this is like a ritual between me and my son. He's always concerned about me. He's always concerned about how my day was, what if I had any problems and that kind of thing. None of the others aren't, but he always asks me. That's the first thing, Daddy, how was it? And now he just says, Daddy, glad you. So I just thought I would share that. Yeah, he is so sweet. Okay, let's continue from where we left off because time goes so quickly. We are looking at the subject. We continue to look at the subject. This thing called love. This thing called love. And we are looking at 1 Corinthians chapter 13. If you are new and perhaps you didn't, well, if you're new, you would not have had the sessions we had before. You can go on YouTube and check them. We have been on this subject for a long time. And we just recently started going to the 1 Corinthians chapter 13. And where we are at now is that love is not easily provoked. Love does not get angry. And we are talking about anger. And last evening, we talked about how do you deal with anger, with your own anger. I want to ask you a question. Does anybody have a rubber band on the wrist? Did anybody put a rubber band on the wrist at all? Or you didn't remember to do it? Don't answer that. I just thought I would ask. But we looked at...
I did.
Yes? Oh, so you actually put a rubber band on the wrist. All right. All right. Not hearing, Janet. I am not sure what's going on. Let me just switch back my screen.
Dr. Richard, we're not hearing you, It's like you're going in and out.
You're not hearing me?
No, we're hearing you, yes.
Okay. All right. Are you hearing me better now?
Yes, we are.
Okay, wonderful. So I asked about the rubber band on your wrist. Okay, so tonight I want to ask a question. We talked about how we deal with our own anger. And there are certain things that we recommended. But how do we deal with other people when they get angry? How do we diffuse a situation like that? How do we out the fire? How do we calm them down? What do you do? Let me hear from some of you. If somebody is angry, they're vexed, what do you do to calm down that person? Let me hear you. Talk to me, somebody. You must have encountered an angry person, whether it's your sibling or your spouse or your friend or somebody you met somewhere. What do you do? What would you recommend to do with somebody who is angry? Nobody? You've never met an angry person? Talk to me, First Lady. Anybody? Are you all hearing me?
Yes, Dr.
Richard. We're hearing you. So we have some hands up. We have Elder Sherry and Sister Yene, but we also have in the chat, someone says listen and validate their feelings.
Validate
right, and we have, so we have first Elder Sherry and then Sister Yene, and they should be able to unmute.
Good evening, family. So I had this friend who when he gets really angry, I was the only person that was able to get him to calm down. And what I used to do is talk him down. So try to bring sense to him based on what could happen if he allow himself to stay at that level of anger, and kind of break him down from there. Remember your mother, remember this one, all the things that, would matter to him. And eventually he used to calm down, and then we could move him away from the situation and then speak with him on a different level.
Okay. So kind of like what Black Widow does to the Hulk, for those of you who are Marvel fans. She's the only person who could get him to calm down and come back to his normal self. And there are some of us like that who people depend on us to bring them back down to where they're supposed to be. Yeah. Who's the next person, Sister Yane?
Good night, everyone.
Hi.
Can you all hear me? Okay.
Yes.
So when I encounter an angry person, and I have encountered some people who go into like extreme fits of rage, and for me, what I do is work exceedingly hard to control my own flesh, because sometimes when people are angry, they start to tell you all kind of things. So it's like it kind of ties into what First Lady was speaking about temptation, because like people will say things to you that would want to bring out that part of you, and you would have to have self-control and not match, because when you match, it's kind of take everything to a next level. They're gonna get more vexed than you're gonna get more vexed. So it's
Fire on
just
fire.
for me it's really controlling my own flesh and allowing the situation to subside. I might stay quiet. I'll try to be very intentional about what I say, talk to God in my head, like, God, tell me what to say, what not to say, so I could be wise in this encounter and keep things where you want them to stay. And I try to be tuned into what God tells me to say. And when He tells me to shut up, I shut up. And as the situation passes, usually when people allow, like when they're not stayed, they're not really rational. So after a while, things kind of subside, and then you could have like a rational conversation with them after the fact.
Okay. What did you say? When they're not saved, they're not rational?
No,
Is that
when
what
they
you
get
said?
into that state
Oh, when they get in
of
that state.
anger,
Oh,
that state of
oh.
anger, they usually aren't thinking rationally. So even when you
Mhm.
try to reason, it mightn't even work. So you just
Yeah.
have to be wise to and allow that to subside, and then try to have a conversation if necessary. Sometimes I just let it go because I don't need the apology. Let's just let it go, pretend it didn't happen, and we move on and we keep the peace.
Okay. All right. So thank you so much, both of you. So let me recommend some things and tell me if you agree and tell me if they can work. How do you deal with other people's anger? Well, the first thing is for you to stay calm. Just like Sister Yana was just talking about. You have got to stay calm. Do not respond in anger. Do not respond likewise. I know sometimes, especially if it's directed towards you, you want to get vexed too. But what does Proverbs 15:1 say? Who got that verse? Proverbs 15:1. Joshua?
Good night.
Aye.
Yes, good night. Good night, Doctor. It says, are you hearing me?
Yes, go ahead.
It says, um, I just had it here. Give me a second. I just had it. A soft answer turn away wrath, but a harsh word stir up anger.
Thank you. A soft answer turns away wrath. In other words, you don't fight fire with fire. You fight fire with water. Water outs fire. And the more water you have, the better it is. So a soft answer. We have to learn to start, having some soft responses. There's a saying that says, keep your words soft and sweet, just in case you have to eat them. We need to learn to speak to people, even when they're stirred up and angry and whatever it is. We have to learn to calm them down, to be calm. One of the things they teach you in management, as a manager, as a supervisor, if you're dealing with a subordinate and they raising the voice, you don't raise the voice. The higher they go, the lower you go. All right, because when you try to match them, you're bringing yourself to their level. So as they escalate, you de-escalate, you come down. And that is one of the ways that you can deal with someone who is angry. Just one of the ways. Another thing I want to suggest is try listening to what they have to say. Do not cut them short. Do not cut them. A lot of times we listen not to understand, not to hear what the person is saying. From the time the person says 2 words, we want to jump in. And don't ever do that. First Lady could tell you, one of the things that I don't like, and this is me personally now, I don't like when I have something to say to you, whether I'm angry or I'm telling you, and I say 2 words and then you jump in, because you know what I'm going to say in your mind. You know what, as far as you're concerned, he's going down this road. So let me get down there before him. Don't do that to someone who is angry. You let them vent if they have to. Let them say what they have to say. Don't try to cut them off, because when you cut off people, what you're actually saying to them is that what you have to say is not important. I already know what you're going to say. And even if you do know what they're going to say, allow them to say it. Because when you cut them short, what you are doing is that you are escalating the problem. You are telling them, I don't really care to hear all that you have to say. And that makes them even more angry. So listen, listen. And if you take the word listen, S-L-I-S-T-E-N, and you mix up the letters, you will get S-I-L-E-N-T. Remain silent as far as possible, as much as possible. I want to suggest as well another way to de-escalate anger. And stop me at any time if you agree or disagree. First, you will tell me if you put your hand up. Do not make light of their reason for being angry. Do not make light of it. In other words, you don't say things like, that's what you vexed for. That will just stir them up even more, because it's important to them. If they get angry, it means that it's important. If they get angry, it means that something touched a nerve somewhere. If they get angry, it's important to them. It may be small thing to you. It may not be important to you, but it's important enough to get them angry, whatever it is. So don't ask them what why they woken up themselves and what is that all about. You don't do that to someone who is angry. Another thing I want to suggest with regards to anger is this. Distance yourself emotionally if you can. Don't get wrapped up in anything. I think I told you already about a good friend of mine way back many years ago. We went to school together, and it was after we came out of school, he became a policeman. And there was this domestic disturbance. And he was called, somebody made a report. And he went there. This husband and this wife, were arguing and probably got out of hand. And he is listening now to them, and he take the man's side, and he start to quarrel with the woman. He is a policeman, and he is supposed to go there and bring some sense of reasoning and stability to the situation. And he agreed with the man, so he started to quarrel with the woman too. So both of them against the woman. You can't get involved. You cannot get involved as a mediator, as someone who's trying to deal with the situation. Try to stay out of it emotionally. Whether you agree with one person or the next, your job is to bring peace. Your job is to bring calm. Don't get involved. If you are not involved, don't get involved. Now, next thing, if you are involved, in fact, if you are the cause of the person being angry, take responsibility. Try to avoid making excuses or defending your action, because the more excuses you make, more angry the person will get. If you really want to diffuse the situation, take responsibility. Okay, I did this, I'm sorry, or I didn't understand, or whatever you need to say to make that person understand that you are seeing things from their point of view. You may not necessarily agree with them, and you may be right, but take responsibility. And especially if you are wrong, more so now, take responsibility for the thing. All right? You are the one that caused it. Yes, it's my fault. Because if you do not take responsibility, you get the person more angry. Next thing I want to suggest to you, do not try to win. Don't try to win. We always want to win an argument. Sometimes it's better to lose the battle in order to win the war. But a lot of us don't know how to say, okay, as we say in Trinidad, take win. We don't know how to do that. We always want to win. We want to be the one to have the last say, to say the last word. You don't always have to do that. If you really want that person that you're faced with, who is angry and maybe getting out of hand, if you want them to calm down, sometimes you have to lose. Sometimes you have to lose. And I know it's hard sometimes because you think you're right. But sometimes it is better to lose now to win later. I hope you understand it. Another thing that I want to suggest is look after your own well-being. What do I mean by that? If the person is so angry that you feel threatened, trust your judgment, move away. Find a safe space. Because sometimes people are so angry, they get out of hand and they could do something that could hurt you or harm you and even themselves. So see about your own well-being. Don't be so focused on trying to calm them down that you stay in a situation that is that your life or your well-being is threatened, where you could get hurt. So trust your judgment. If you start to feel intimidated, walk away. Move out of that situation. Get out of that environment. And if the person is willing to talk to you, help that person to identify their triggers. In other words, if somebody's always angry, sometimes they don't even know why they're getting angry. Sometimes they don't know what trips them, but you might know looking on. You need to help that person. It may not be at that time when they get angry, maybe when they have calmed down, but you have to help them. You might be the person to help them to identify what triggers them. Like, First Lady, she doesn't like the place nasty at all. So she knows that. I don't have to help her to identify that. If she didn't know, I would say to her, every time you come from the bedroom to the living room or you go into the kitchen and you see the place dirty, you get angry. And if she didn't know that, I could help her to realize that. So now she can do something about it, which doesn't necessarily mean ignoring it. It means, well, okay, now I can say to you all, yes, this is what gets me angry. And it gets me really angry, X, Y, Z, and we could work it out. But help the person to identify the trigger. And the last thing I want to share concerning this, if you don't know what to do, if you feel threatened, if it is that this person is angry and they're acting up or whatever it is, go to God. Talk to God about it. Let's look at Psalm 86, 14 and 15. 14 to 17, I think. Psalm 86, 14 to 17. Who has that one?
Good night. I have that, Dr. Richards. Reading from the New King James Version. Good night, everyone. Oh God, the proud have risen against me, and a mob of violent men have sought my life, and have not set you before them. But you, O Lord, are a God full of compassion and gracious, long-suffering, and abundant in mercy and truth. Oh, turn to me and have mercy on me. Give your strength to your maidservant. Show me a sign for good, that those who hate me may see it and be ashamed, because you, Lord, have helped me and comforted me.
So sometimes you just have to go to God and say, God, you gotta help me. This person is in a rage, they're angry, they're trying to do something. Lord, you need to protect me. You need to help me. Help me show me how to deal with this thing, God. That's what you need. Sometimes you just need to run to God and say, God, I don't know how to handle this. I just don't know how to handle it. So God, you deal with it. Sometimes that's all you can do. And I promise you, when you go to God, he deals with the situation for you. All right. So love is not easily provoked. Some people are easily provoked, but when you love people, you don't get angry all the time with them. And remember, we're talking about how to love. We're supposed to love, we love ourselves. We are not commanded to love ourselves. We love ourselves, but we are to love our neighbors or as we love ourselves. We are told to love God, love our enemies, love the brethren. So all this is how we love. All this is how we love, because love is what love does. So I'm going to pause here just for a second. Any question, any comment before we move on? Are we good? We cool? We good to go? Ella, come. I'm switch my screens now, so I'm seeing a hand. Not sure who it
Yes,
is.
we have Ella Sheldon.
Ella Sheldon, yes. Go ahead.
Good night, Dr. Richards. Good night, everyone. Dr. Richards, I heard you said something just now when you was talking about do not make light of the situation in sense of saying that is what you're angry for. Now, if you're dealing with somebody and you know for a fact that the anger is coming from a place of manipulation, right? And you know that the person is angry because they recognized that what they probably tried on you did not pan out. And so how do you deal with a situation like that? Because at the end of the day, I don't think that by I condoning that behavior, right? Because by I condoning that behavior and telling them, well, hey, that is what you angry about that thing, understanding that what it was about was directed towards me. And the fact that you didn't succeed, you got angry, right? So if I'm asking you, that is what you're angry about, am I wrong for doing something like that?
Yeah,
Understanding that is it's manipulation, that it was coming from a place of manipulation.
Yeah, but you see, you could escalate a situation by the way you respond to it. All right. To that person, remember, in that person's mind, they're justified in their anger. They're justified, or whatever was their motivation. As you say, in this case, they're trying to manipulate you. So they're justified. By you asking them, that's what you're angry about, it's not helping the situation. It's making it worse for the person, because what you're telling them is, listen, you see, you and that nonsense, that stupidness, that ain't mean nothing to me. And that is not the way to deal with a situation. There are some situations, especially when people trying to manipulate you. You get out of that situation, you get away from it. And there are some situations where it calls for an intervention by a third party. There are some situations where you have to bring in a third party because the person will not see your side of it. They need somebody who is impartial, who will say to them, listen, you see what you're doing there? The same thing you just said, manipulation. That person is able to point that out to them. You pointing it out to them, they're not going to accept it. So there are certain situations where you need the intervention of someone who is impartial, someone who that person would listen to. And if you can't get that, then you have to avoid the situation altogether. Now, there are certain times, there are certain things, there are certain people, I should say, that you come face to face with them all the time. You can't avoid them. And I hear you, and I understand that you have to deal with it. But I'm saying to you, you have to find something else other than the two of you. Whoever that person is, you need another, it's like you want to, if you, this is life, when life gives you lemon, make lemonade, all right? But you have to have water and you have to have sugar. You can't make lemonade unless you have water and sugar. So you can't just take the lime. The lime alone is not going to do, or the lemon alone is not going to do. I don't know if that's making sense. What I'm saying to you is this. There are certain situations where, because of what it is, and when you mention manipulation, it means that this is a personal thing. This is something between you and that person. And if it's manipulation that they're trying to manipulate you, sometimes you have to have an intervention in order to deal with the situation. And it may also mean that you have. Go ahead.
Even if you recognize also too that person is a downright narcissist.
Yeah. Yeah. You see, let me tell you something. You telling the person they're not narcissist again they will not accept that from you. They will not accept if you are the object of that anger. Remember, whatever you say will be in direct opposition to what they say and what they think. And that's why I tell you, there are some situations that you cannot do by yourself. It will not. You see, if you and I having an argument and I see there's something in you, okay, you are wrong. Let's just say that. And because you are wrong, I say to you, Elder Sheldon, you are wrong because of so and so. If you would listen to that, then that's okay. We can quarrel anytime because we listen to each other. But there are people who, when they argue, most time when two people argue, they don't want to listen to what the other person is saying. They do not accept what the other person is saying. And it doesn't matter what you say. And what you telling me, I'm a narcissist. You telling me I'm a narcissist will not make me say, oh, he's right. It's not going to do that. That's why I say sometimes you need the intervention of a third party who is impartial, who is not showing partiality to either one. So when that person says to that person, hey, listen, you are displaying narcissistic behavior, they're more inclined to listen to that person, more inclined, not say they will, they are more inclined to listen to that person because they know that person is not being biased, that person is not on your side, that person is trying to assist in the situation. So there are times when you need intervention. There's no way that two people can work it out themselves. One of the things I always say, let me just say this quickly, and I think I mentioned it last night. When I'm talking to couples, you need to have rules of engagement. In other words, there are certain do's and don'ts in a relationship that we must agree on for when we are angry, for when we fall out. There are certain things must guide the process as to how we resolve this thing. If we are just arguing, all is going to happen is that I'm going to say what I think, you're going to say what you think, I'm going to respond, and then you're going to respond to me, and it's just going to continue. If there are rules and regulations that you both abide by, that's one thing. And if not, then you need the intervention of a third party who is not just a friend or depending on how severe it is, someone who is trained in dealing with situations like these. That's the only way you're going to resolve it. Anyone else? No, I know there are some difficult situations. There are challenging situations. There are some people that no matter how you try to talk to them, it always ends up in an argument. No matter how nice you are to them. And you can use soft words, but it always ends up in an argument. You have to remember, though, that it is not you cannot change somebody's mind. You cannot cause them to be how you want them to be. You have to control yourself. You have to act in a righteous manner. You are the one. You control you. And you do what is right. And leave the rest up to, if the person is a believer, the Holy Spirit to convict them. That's all you can do, and pray about the situation. There are some situations that are easily resolved. There are some situations you might argue and fight and stuff, but you come back after. But there are some situations I know that escalates. And no matter how you try with that person, as long as you have to work with that person, and when I say work with that person, whether it's in your office, whether it's your spouse or your sibling, that you have to be in close proximity with that person, you have to interact with that person, you need the intervention of a third party. And that is what happened between God and man, There's a conflict between God and man, and there needed to be a mediator. That's why Jesus had to come to be the mediator. Because no matter how you took it, sin separated God and man. And that is the reason why there needed to be a mediator. I remember we did this study on the mediator already. We may revisit it sometime. But there's something that need intervention.
But Dr. Richards, in the absence of that mediator, right? What? Because I mean that question is it's a reality question, you know.
Yes, it is.
Um,
It is.
but in the absence of having a third party, what next? Especially Dr. Richards, you know, based on an example you just gave, especially if it's sibling or even your spouse. And you're saying that you have to deal with this person every day and seeing them in your life. It's where you live. I mean, if that is not a possibility, then what?
Well, the scripture says, as far as is possible, live at peace with all men, which suggests that sometimes it may not even be possible, or it is difficult, it is challenging. There are some people you may just have to avoid. There are some people that you may have to just deal with on a particular level. If it's a co-worker, we deal on the level of, you know, we have to work together, whatever, however we have to interact, we interact at that level and nothing more. It's a little more challenging if it's your spouse. But as I said, you can only control you. You can only act. You can only, you cannot determine how the person is going to respond, how the person is going to act. Only you. And sometimes you have to be prepared. You have to be prepared. You know, there's sometimes that you're going to talk to somebody and you have to hold your breath because you know whatever you say, no matter how you try to say it, it's going to turn out to be a problem. There's nothing you can do about that. You have no control over that. And it may come to the place where you have to say, listen, I have to get out of this situation. The Bible said, if your right hand offend you, cut it off. There are things that you and people that you have to cut off from your life because those relationships are toxic. They're not helping you, and you're certainly not helping them. And you know, people saying, and I don't want you to misunderstand what I'm saying, but there are people that I have told, I'm talking about married couple, you all are not good for each other. You're just not good for one another. And it means that you have to go your separate ways because you're supposed to build one another, strengthen one another, encourage one another. You all are supposed to be one with each other, but you're not one, you're divided. And it may mean that you just have to go your separate way. Abraham had to separate with Lot. Paul and Barnabas had to separate. Yet there are times when working together is just not possible because anger always comes in. There's always a problem. There's always an issue. There's always a situation. There are times that you just have to distance yourself from the environment and from the person. There are situations like that. There's just not anything that you can do about it. You have tried all that you've tried. You've done all that you can do. You've said all that you can say. And this person does not accept that. Sometimes you have even tried intervention, a third party, and it doesn't work. The only thing you can do is not be in the same space, in the same environment. And this goes for friendships, this good for marriages, this goes for work relationships. They are just, listen, think of a puzzle. And all of us are pieces in the puzzle. And while we all belong in this puzzle to make up the picture, there are certain pieces that just don't go together. They're part of the puzzle, but it just don't fit together, and it doesn't make any sense trying to force it together because it just doesn't belong. Understand what I'm saying? And so there are times when you have to walk away, you have to distance yourself. It is, I don't see it as giving up. I see it as taking the appropriate action to do what needs to be done in order
We have
to
two
maintain.
comments in the chat box.
Yeah, in order to maintain your sanity and in order to maintain your Christianity, excuse me, as well. Comments?
One person said, that's true. Someone says, and sometimes the tone of voice makes a big difference. And this comment here, Doc says, amen. Just be cordial and avoid confrontation. Feed that person with a long spoon. Show respect, especially if you work together. But Doc, I'm kind of this particular question that was asked, I'm kind of still having a little, because I'm just thinking, if you have a spouse and you're in the same place, how could you feed that person with a long spoon?
Well, okay, there's no one size
You know?
fits all, and you
Mhm.
see, it depends on what what your situation is, what the problem is, what the physical situation is in terms of where you all are at. I can't give you one answer that would suit everybody. It depends on, I would guide somebody accordingly based on what their situation is. There are some people who live in the same house and they sleep in different rooms and that works for them. There are some people that just can't even be under the same roof. So it depends on what the situation is. We will guide them accordingly. There's no one size that fits all. But what I'm saying to you, there are some people, and I want to be very deliberate in what I'm saying here. There are some people who stay in situations because they are told you can't leave, you can't go, it is wrong to go, it is against the Lord, and they're told that. And people remain in abusive relationships. And when I say abusive, it doesn't necessarily just mean physical abuse. It may be mental abuse or financial abuse. They stay in abusive relationships. Listen, Jesus came to set us free, not to have us in a cage, not to have us chained, not to have us in a place where we cannot function. He came to set us free. We are supposed to be free beings. And if every day you get up and you feel as though you're in a prison, if every day you can't function because of what is going on, you are not free. So I'm saying to you, I'm trying not to say certain things while I'm saying this. Okay, but maybe I'll think about it and pray about it and see if maybe in the next time I will tell you exactly what I'm talking about. So I'm trying to say without saying, but I'm saying to you that not every situation can be worked out. Not every situation. We would like it to, all right, we would like to have peace and harmony, but Jesus said that conflict will arise. It will always arise. And we have to know how to deal with that conflict. And sometimes dealing with it means you go to the left and I go to the right. That's the only way. There are just some people who are not good fits for one another. Just like the puzzle. Yeah? So I see we've run out of time. We'll pick this up on Tuesday, God's willing. Don't forget, we will be back on Monday for prayer. Monday at 6 o'clock. We have 1 hour of prayer on Mondays, but Bible study, Kingdom study is on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday from 8 p.m. The Zoom is open at 7, so you can come on as early as 7 o'clock. For those of you who don't know, the Zoom is open at 7, and we start at 8 o'clock. All right, so God bless you. Have a wonderful weekend. And don't forget, red eyes out there, people. The Americans call it pink eye. Red eyes out there, so be careful, be careful, be careful, be careful. And COVID hasn't gone away. So God bless you, First Lady. Back over to you.
Meaning, don't put your hands in your eyes, please. That's simply what it means. Still continue to practice COVID